last year was every time we have a situation like this, before we get into the content of the panel, we'll look at either a female founder or a young founder and celebrate them for a second. So I see my friend Akanksha here. Akanksha, you want to stand up? Akanksha and I, she just flew in from Dubai yesterday. We went to high school together, but I'm incredibly proud of the work she does. She runs an agency called Socialize. Please go check it out. So with that, welcome guys. So we have a remarkable panel here. The genesis of it was, I run a company called Neuro Insight, where we map people's brains and figure out how people react to any kind of stimulus subconsciously. And one of the questions we keep getting asked is, can we measure creativity? What is the role of creativity in business? And how do we actually control it? Which is the hardest question to answer of the lot. So I thought, who better to discuss this with than my dear friend Ricardo and Jay. And just to give you a brief background, our friend Ricardo here has been working with Anheuser-Busch for about 17 years and has, between Stella, Budweiser, and Ultra, won 42 Cannes Lions. So, if there is a festival of creativity, Ricardo seems to be the god of it. So, welcome, Ricardo.
Thank you.
We also have Jay here, who's the CMO at Shake Shack. Jay's accomplished career has, 20 years in Bank of America, then at BarkBox, and now leading product and marketing at Shake Shack. He's also the executive producer of a bunch of movies and is an angel investor in 30+ companies. So welcome, Ricardo and Jay. So what we're going to do today, I'll give you the general arc of the panel. And sorry, I have to go very wide on both ends. So pardon my reach on either sides. So what we're going to do today is we're going to start off with a general discussion on what creativity is, how do we define creativity, the neuroscience of creativity from our perspective of what we study every day, then get to the challenges we face to be creative internally within organizations and externally, and lastly, how do we overcome that and celebrate some of the work that our fellow participants have embarked upon. So the way neuroscience defines creativity is your brain tapping into a variety of data sources within your brain and make a connection that has never been made before. So that's all creativity is, like linking things in a way that it's never been done before. What is a creative? This industry has defined it rather differently. They have made a noun out of an adjective. And so a creative is either a person in this industry, which is strange because everybody has creativity in them, or it is an ad that they produce or a piece of content that they produce. And while we're doing definitions, marketing is the craft of promoting a product or a service to its target audience at a place that they are present in a way that they're receptive to the idea. So these are the basic definitions of what we're going to be dealing with. So my first question to our panelists is, what is creativity to you? And what are the responsibilities you take on as the curators of creativity within your brands?
Well, first of all, it is a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me. This is certainly a very important, relevant topic today, one that we're always chasing, right? It's an everyday exercise. But to your question, I would say that the way we define creativity is essentially about finding original solutions for relevant problems, right? So there is, of course, an element of novelty. That's why the element of originality is certainly very important, but also the element of being relevant. Creativity, for the sake of creativity, doesn't lead to good places, right? So that's what we're trying to connect, these elements of originality and relevance, right? And as I said, this is a everyday challenge through our teams, through our agency partners, to make sure that we can identify great thinking, make sure that we have the right work environment to do it, and then to follow through, right? And really take those things from paper into the actual world.
Fantastic. Jay?
Yeah, well, Shake Shack is really a challenger brand. We're not very old. We're opening a Shake Shack once every 3 days somewhere in the world. So we've got a lot of growth, but the brand kind of punches above its weight, and we don't have a lot of dollars to go out and do big mass media campaigns and everything else. So a big part of what we do is trying to be very creative with our precious dollars at this stage. Danny Meyer has a quote, "The bigger we get, the smaller we have to act." He's chairman of our board. And I kind of take that to heart when it comes to our marketing. We want to be very authentic, very culinary led, very local in our communities. And how do you scale that? So that is a big debate we have is one, how do you create great, provocative, creative, but also scale it because we don't have huge dollars to throw behind it. So it's the ongoing question that we have all sorts of techniques and processes to try to generate and push us. But it's a great thing to discuss.
Fantastic. So, the human brain is a pattern-seeking and storytelling device, right? It has a limited amount of bandwidth, limited number of things it can pay attention to, limited amount of memories it can save within itself. And now we have an infinite amount of content out there in the world. So for a brand to be able to cut through, you truly have to be, unique and genuine to be able to cut through. So the correlation between creativity and business is rather real. But when it comes to your own process around creativity, right? Because you're doing something new, you must have the butterflies. What is your process of getting comfortable with something you haven't done before? And then tell us a little bit about how do you rally the rest of the team to actually get behind that?
It has never been, more the case than, especially in the days we live in today, that we need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's indeed how you can unlock amazing creative thinking. And I'm thinking about a couple of things. I'm thinking about what we did through the pandemic with Michelob Ultra Courtside in partnership with Microsoft and the NBA. So if you remember watching a basketball game through those very challenging times, you'll remember that Microsoft Teams technology wrapped up around the court, which was called Michelob Ultra Courtside. So that was not a spot. It was not a 30-second ad. It was indeed, again, an original solution for a relevant problem, right?
Right.
So this is more and more what we're going after. But then again, to your point, it is very important for us as leaders to be able to create a space where the teams, and by teams, not only the ones working in our office, but also our extended teams, our agencies and our partners, an environment where it's okay to fail. And to know that we're going to learn from it and bounce back and then come back even better next time around. But that element of psychological safety is crucial because one of the key barriers to unlocking great creative thinking is the fear of failing, right? That is the one thing that always gets in the way. You can have an amazing team, you can have amazing creative partners, you can have amazing ideas on paper, but ultimately, if you don't have the courage to push things through and make them happen, then nothing will really see the light of day. And we have another case we'll show later today, McEnroe versus McEnroe, which was, I think, a prime example of that.
Fantastic. Jay?
Well, that's the best answer. I can't really beat that one because it is about culture. It's about creating a culture of creativity where people feel comfortable failing, where they feel comfortable pushing boundaries. The one thing we've done to help build that culture is we don't use ad agencies. So we have an in-house design and creative team. And that's challenging but fun to manage. There are all sorts of benefits, right? You get to stay more authentic to who you are. It saves you money to do that. The challenge is you've got to continuously push that team and reinvigorate because they're not like an agency where they're going to bring in new folks all the time to explore it. So that is a huge asset for us, but we want to have that culture where people are really, really pushing and being provocative. And that's what we aim for.
Amazing. I think my first day at Neuro Insight 12 years ago was at Advertising Week. And I walked in as a 25-year-old kid trying to tell people, hey, by the way, 90% of human decision making takes place in the subconscious. They're like, yeah, smart one, how is that done? I was like, well, the past 5,000 years of philosophy says that, but if you don't believe that, the past 100 years of neuroscience says that. And they're like, how does that relate to me? And I was like, well, it relates to you because you create things to serve people by asking them questions, and what they say is not correlated to what they actually want. And people are like, oh, of course, that makes sense. I never understand what other people say to me because they go on and do different things. Yet at the same time, in these 12 years, the number of doors that we've had to knock, to knock down barriers, to get receptivity, it's been a tough battle. So from an external party, I see all the CMOs in the world talk about creativity and a culture within the team that's accepting of innovation. Yet someone else sitting on the outside, I'm like, man, no, these guys say these things, but they don't do it. So tell us from your perspective what that process is internally, and what battles you have to face to push through the innovation, because I'm a personal beneficiary of your leadership. When you looked at it, you're like, no, we want this, we want to do this. So how do you do that? What are the challenges internally, and how do you overcome them?
Let's say that along, spoke about fear of failing, right? The second, potentially the second biggest barrier is the routine thinking, right? As companies, as larger organizations, we are taught and organized around routines, right? Around routine thinking, which is great because it makes sure that processes are in place, make sure that our lives run smoothly every single day. But at the same time, on the flip side of the coin, it creates almost this antibody to anything that's new and different. And that could be, as we've been chatting about, right, our partnership to test creativity in a different way and changing the process and the way we do that,
right,
to trying something new that has never been done before. Like, we are wired, especially as we think about a collective team in a company, we are wired to rule out anything that has not been tried and true, anything that we haven't done yesterday, and therefore that's why we keep doing the same thing day in, day out.
Yes.
Well, it's funny. So I've been at Shake Shack 4 years ago, January. And when I got there, we were all instinct-led, complete instinct, right? And so we would do things sometimes that were way ahead of the curve because we had these great instinctual chefs, and our CEO and Danny Meyer and everybody is so thoughtful on that. But we would also make mistakes, and we wouldn't have data to help us either say, this is going to be a problem that you don't realize, or this is an opportunity that you're not seeing. So what we kind of shifted the line I used is, we're going to be instinct-led but data-supported. And we didn't have any consumer, what we call guest insights or analytics function. So that was my first hire. I said, I'm going to build a guest insights analytics function to just understand more about our guests, who they are, what's important to them. And we're never going to let that, we're not going to be focus group led, but we are going to have that foundation. The second sort of agreement I had with Randy, the CEO, is when I took the job, is I want to oversee culinary and product and supply chain and all those functions along with marketing. And he said, wait, you don't have any food background. You're coming from a dog company and a bank. We're not going to turn over this precious thing to you. He said, what's the thinking there? I said, well, I just believe that I never want to be in a position where somebody hands me a product and says, go sell it. And then when it doesn't sell, they say, why couldn't you sell this product, right? Marketing was clearly not good enough. Yeah, it's usually the product. It's not always the marketing. So I want to build marketing into the product from the start. And so one of the things, he said, well, let's give it a few months to make sure they like you and the team is comfortable with that. And then if it works out, we'll do that. So we have done that. And an example of how that's worked for us, I think, is the Hot Ones campaign. So we have a spicy chicken sandwich and burger right now with Hot Ones, which is a First We Feast program that a guy named Sean Evans sits down and eats progressively hotter chicken wings with celebrities, right? And we said, we're going to launch this spicy chicken sandwich, but why not do it with First We Feast and Sean and call it a Hot Ones burger? And suddenly you've got a built-in mass media platform and channel and program supporting this launch, where all these people are talking about it for no dollars on our account. And we built it from the very start. We developed that item with him and with First We Feast and Hot Ones, and it's been a big hit. We could not have done that if we were separate. So to me, the takeaway is I always want to be somewhere where I can. Marketing owns the product, because if you can do it right, it's a massive advantage.
If I can move on there, a couple of things that we've changed on our end. One was the ability to tap into the creative thinking of all of our agency partners. Traditionally, we would go to our traditional advertising agency, but in reality, we have great creative brains all around us, our design agency, our PR teams, and you name it, right? So we created a monthly hang where you are encouraged to bring new ideas forward. So there are a few briefs that we have on the table that are year-round because our strategic priorities don't change week on week. So we have a few always-on briefs. We immerse the teams in our business, and then we allow them to go crazy, so to say, and to bring fun ideas forward every single month. That allows us to start treating ideas in the same way we treat innovation, product innovation, where we have a funnel, for our product launches. We have exactly the same thing for our ideas. So we have a funnel of ideas. Some of them are ready to launch. Some of them need a little bit more work. But that allows us to put creativity at the center and to think about it every single day. Because at the end of the day, it is a muscle. You need to exercise it. It needs to be part of what you do every single day and how you incentivize our agencies, how we incentivize our own teams. But that for us has been transformational, even in the way we operate today in social listening, right? We operate as a newsroom of CNN or New York Times, right? We're listening into what's happening every single day in culture, and we match that with this internal flux of ideas so that we can understand where to play and what makes sense for the strategy of Michelob Ultra.
Yeah, remarkable. I mean, what I'm hearing from both of you, one within the department and one is across departments, breaking down of the silos. Point is that we look at the world as like, all right, well, this is a physical object. It has some physics associated with it, but there's also biology associated with it. There's also chemistry associated with it. The fact that we decided that the world should have these disciplines did not determine the chair, and the same way, the fact that we decided to silo marketing from product doesn't mean that actually the product itself and what the consumer experiences should be separate. And by unifying them, you've actually given them a rather consistent experience than they would have gotten otherwise.
Yeah.
So changing gears with the last 10 minutes, so 2 more questions to go. First one, can creativity be measured? And if yes, how do you do that? And I'll say, because we're involved in the business of it, we don't say that we measure creativity. We measure the impact of it. And there's a difference. Much like I said, the human brain is a pattern-seeking storytelling device. Essentially, everything that we experience is told and experienced through stories. Sometimes when we measure the brain as people are listening to radio, we see the visual cortex go up. Why? Because it's not like they're getting a visual stimulus, they're imagining the visual. So everything is encoded within the brain as an entire story as it's being perceived. And unless and until a brand or a key message is able to integrate itself in a story that stays on with people after the experience, you've created entertainment and haven't really done anything for the brand. So we measure that impact. So internally, though, as you look at creativity, and there are all of these awards in the world for it, how do you think of measuring creativity?
I mean, to your point, the impact of creativity in the business. I mean, McKinsey recently published a study which, no surprise, correlates companies and brands who are more creative as measured to their work being recognized into their revenue and bottom line and business performance. So there is a lot of evidence out there to show that better ideas equal better business outcomes. And I mean, the case that we have here to show McEnroe is a good example of that. You also measure creativity in terms of the immediate impact on an idea. Are people talking about the idea? Are people embracing the idea, whatever that might be, a product, or which is easier because you look at sales, but a piece of content that the one we're just about to show you. For us, it was, well, it was so interesting that ESPN decided to partner with us on this crazy idea. It was so interesting that actually they decided to take it to 52 countries around the world. It generated over $20 million of earned media value. So that for us, the sort of scalability and impact, immediate impact of an idea is already in its own right a good indicator of its strength.
Now that you've spoken so much about it, we're going to play the little case study, and then we're going to address it. So
I think you're hearing more about the trials and tribulations of a lot of athletes now. I was winning pretty much everything, but still it felt a little bit empty. That's part of why I was looking for something different. You know, enjoy the moment a little bit.
Now on the court, John McEnroe.
You cannot be serious! Get away from me!
Welcome to Michelob Ultra, McEnroe versus McEnroe, one of the most exciting moments in the history of tennis.
On one side, John McEnroe playing on a real tennis court. On the other side, virtual John McEnroe.
You ready to face yourself? Whoa, okay.
You've got a physically transparent screen, which John can play a ball to, and the ball will pass through that.
Bring it on, man. Let's do this. Dirty love. How the hell did they do this?
After analysing every single match in John's career, each avatar was programmed with adaptive artificial intelligence that think and play just like John.
Unreal Engine will control where the robots are positioned, how fast the tennis ball is going to go, and what kind of spin the ball is going to do as well.
To accurately replicate McEnroe's style of play of his career.
You cannot be serious!
So this was like a monumental moment. It turned out to be quite a night and quite a year for me. Probably, as I said, the most fun I ever had.
Very good. Of course, I know the genesis of it, but for the benefit of our audience, of course, you know, the platform Ultra runs on is joy, and it's not worth it if you don't enjoy it. Tell me when you got this idea, or when this was brought up to you.
That's right. I mean,
How was it received, and what was Benoit's first reaction when you were like, I'm going to do this?
Yeah, so it's only worth it if you enjoy it. That's our place in the world. We believe that John was the perfect ambassador to bring that message, not only to younger athletes that are starting up to say, hey, don't forget to enjoy the ride, right? Have fun out there. There's a lot of pressure in the world, but don't forget to enjoy. And that's why him reflecting on his career in a very interesting, disruptive way was the perfect way for us to deliver this message that is at the center of the strategy. But to your question, I mean, this was one of those ideas that we were very nervous, to tell you the truth, from day one, because it's not obvious. I mean, you think about the technology behind it, it has never been done before. There's the element of things could have not gone the way we were planning to execute. But I go back to the point on creative bravery and being able to take calculated risks and being able to push forward, because if you don't do it, then nothing really creatively or impactful will come out of the exercise. To the teams and the discussions we had both internally with our teams and also with our leadership, we tried to bring the discussion from the barriers that were there from the onset when the idea was presented into imagining if it would work. So the immediate questions were, all right, but how exactly are you going to do that? What do you mean, like a ball that's going to go through a screen and then you have 4 robotic arms that are answering, returning the ball? That sounds like impossible. So we moved the discussion from that into imagine that we can actually pull it off. How awesome it would be, right? How entertaining, how powerful it would be to deliver the point of view of Michelob Ultra. So when we shifted the discussion from the barriers into the possibility of what it could be, then the conversation got a lot more interesting. And
Remarkable.
It's out there, by the way. Watch it. It's still on ESPN Plus. You can stream it. It's a super cool, like 5-match tennis event with part documentary, but it's super, super interesting.
Amazing. And Jay, do you want to talk to like the genesis of the chicken sandwich idea?
Yeah. That's what we measure in primarily is emotion. And when I think about great marketing, and it's probably going to be said 30 times at Adweek at some point, right, is it's not what you say, it's not what you do, it's how you make people feel. So what we're always striving for is where's the emotional connection with this thing? People are very emotional about their food, right? There's passion there. We want to create these experiences that people feel powerfully connected to, and to some degree that's building awareness, but to another degree it's creating like real-time experiences where you just have that connection. So that's what we're always striving for.
Amazing. You know, it's remarkable for me to see creativity come to action, because in college I studied physics, right? And they teach you classical mechanics, and they tell you there's a guy, Newton, and the apple fell, he thought about gravity, he came up with 3 laws of motion. And then this new dude shows up, right, who in 1905 writes 4 papers and shakes up the world. And he completely destroys the classical mechanics model. But when you actually think about it, it was a creative exercise. Einstein first had to imagine the space-time continuum. And once his mind was pushed to that imagination, he then could go back and find the math to be able to justify it. So to talk about creativity is to talk about possibilities, like you mentioned. And I thank you both to have given us your time and shared your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.